Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. We've got a great Figured Out Baseball podcast today with somebody that I'm really pretty pumped to catch up with and to learn from today. He's actually a former player of mine. I didn't, I guess, directly coach him as he was a pitcher, but he was on. I helped recruit him. He was on one of the teams I coached. Really excited today to have Matt Ellenbest on the podcast. He was a player for us, for our staff at Morehead State. He's currently the pitching coach, recruiting coordinator at Kalamazoo College, which is a Division III school in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'll give you a background on Matt here before we jump into questions with him, but a great guy and a guy that I'm really, really excited to learn from today, and I think you'll get a lot out of this podcast as well as the listener. Matt is originally from Medina, Ohio. He played collegiately at Wabash Valley Junior College. He was there for 2 years in Illinois. He redshirted his true freshman year, played his sophomore year, which is when we recruited him out of Wabash to Morehead State. Finished his playing career at Morehead State, a Division I school in Morehead, Kentucky. He was there for several years, going through a couple of injuries. He was a part of the 2015 team that was there, that went to the conference tournament, set a school record with 38 wins, and advanced to the NCAA Division I regional for the first time in 32 years as the Morehead State program. He graduated from Morehead in 2016. He started his coaching career in the summer of 2017, where he coached with the Green Bay Bullfrogs. He was there the summer of 2018 as well. The Green Bay Bullfrogs are a part of the prestigious Northwoods League. He started as a volunteer there for 1 year, then was a pitching coach there in his second year. In the spring of 2018, that's where he started his college coaching career. He was the pitching coach at Kaskaskia College, a junior college in Centralia, Illinois. He was there for 1 season. Then from 2019 to the spring of 2021, he was the pitching coach at Saginaw Valley State, a Division II school in Saginaw, Michigan. The 2019 team that he coached, his pitching staff finished 4th in the conference in strikeouts. 2021, he coached a two-way player who got named the conference freshman of the year. He was hired in the fall of 2021 to be the pitching coach and recruiting coordinator at Kalamazoo College, where he currently is. His 2022 team, his first spring there, they finished 27-13 overall, 15-6 in the conference. His pitching staff led the conference in strikeouts and strikeouts per 9 by quite a wide margin that year. They also, in 2022, won the conference tournament and advanced to the Division III regional. In 2023, the team finished 31-11, a great season there by any standards. They won the regular season by going 17-4 in conference, led the conference as a team in ERA, and Matt also coached the individuals who led the conference in ERA and wins in 2023, and looking forward to a good 2024. Matt, I certainly appreciate you taking time to be on the podcast today, buddy.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
So I typically like to start with something from guys' bios that stand out. I'd like to just kind of ask you honestly about your first experience with Division III baseball. You played at one of the best junior colleges in the country. When you got to Morehead State, we were okay, but by the time you left there, I mean, they were one of the best teams in the conference, certainly as you guys went to a regional in 2015. Then Saginaw Valley, where you coached at junior college, you coached in a Division II, and now you're coaching at a Division III. And you and I talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but I would just like to kind of get your feedback or your perspective on Division III baseball. Now, you've been there for a couple of years, and I'm asking, and most of this podcast, Matt, I record, trying to help high school players, high school coaches, or parents, whoever, just have a better perspective on things and be able to learn some things. And I think that too many times, and I was this way, and I've admitted that on the podcast before, but too many times young kids look at the Division III level and think, I'm not going to go to Division III. It's just not a good level of baseball. I'm better than Division III. I'm not going to go there. But you've spent 2 years there now, and with a good program, a program that's been very successful these past 2 years. What would you tell people that about Division III baseball that might surprise them, just to give them a better perspective about what the level is actually like?
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, over the last couple of years being at the Division III level, the one thing that I've learned through the course of the last couple of years is the talent level. You would be very surprised at how close that gap is from the Division III or Division II. There's some individuals that I've been around at this level that rightfully so move on to play at the Division I level. And a perfect example, as you mentioned in the bio, we had a kid that was a 4-year starter here. Obviously having the COVID year, he's now at a Division I. My first year, we had a kid that transitioned to Division I, and he was 94 to 96. But I will tell you this, you hit it on the head. A lot of kids look at Division III and they overlook it, right? Because transparently, everyone wants a scholarship or is chasing a scholarship, and that's fine. I'm not knocking that by any means here. Because obviously at this level, we can't provide that athletic aid opportunity. However, we do provide tremendous amounts of money outside of that. If I would to give you a background of where I'm at right now, we're a relatively small school, but we have Western Michigan, who's in the MAC, that's right across the street. So that's what makes it a little bit more unique where, hey, we got 1,200 kids, but with Western there, it turns into like a 30,000 person campus within a 5-mile radius. But the one thing for me definitely was the talent level. I was drastically surprised how close it was. My first year, we had an offensive guy, 4-year starter as well. He's at Lenore-Ryan, which is a powerhouse Division II, and he's one of their starters. He was I believe an All-American last year. I would have to double check, but he hit like 380 and had like 15 dingers. So in understanding there's a developmental process there, but at the same time too, the talent level that we are able to provide and that we have, kids go, no, I don't want to do that. But the Division III level, I believe, is a hidden gem. And a lot of it has to do with, obviously, the transfer portal that plays a huge factor in it. A lot of these kids that are within that necessarily don't find a home to play at, and, some guys pick them up. And some of those guys are Division IIIs. I look at a good example at Keystone College. They got 5 or 6 guys that are like 92 plus. They beat a Division I school in a fall scrimmage. So it's no knock to Division I or Division II, but the COVID year and the transfer portal has been able to level the playing field. And I believe nowadays you look at Division III and go, okay, like this could be really scary. There are some serious dudes that transition to higher levels because of it. But I think more so for us, if I were to peel into the personal level of Kalamazoo College, and we're a relatively expensive school, but all the academic aid and financial aid packages and scholarship-based stuff that we're able to provide, decreases the number significantly. A perfect example is that we have a freshman right now. He's from Trenton, Michigan. It's the other side of the state, really. He pays $8,000 a year. So, and more times than not, we have a couple kids that maybe be getting recruited by Division IIs or Division I's, and they're actually spending more money with athletic aid than they would be here. And, being a recruiting coordinator, I am pretty confident in my ability to try to bring in the best talent. And I'm also not afraid to go against Division IIs and Division I's. I'm just not. Now, I've been lucky enough over the last couple of years to be able to pull some of those guys away from Division II into Division I realm and bring them here because, within our program, we don't go in the portal. We don't take kickbacks. We are a freshman-heavy program with the ability to play right away within your 4 years or 5 years for that matter. And I think that's what has been beneficial when we let them know that, and we're completely transparent with them. It's like you're going to have every opportunity to play at a 4-year time frame right away. I think that's a huge selling point. And what we're able to provide too from the athletic side or / baseball side, I'll tell you this firsthand, Jeff. We have 9 different jerseys. We get the guys cleats. We have a glove deal. We have a bat deal. We provide all of this stuff because the atmosphere that we're trying to create at the end all be all here is we want to run our Division III program like a Division I. And I think that's the reason why we're able to bring kids in. But, I've done this in the past to the point where I tell kids, I'm like, look, you can't overlook it because there is a tremendous amount of talent here. You're gonna compete against some pretty competitive, high-spirited, high-energy kids and in hopes of getting better and obviously winning games, because you and I both know that's important at the end all be all. But the Division III level is quite surprising to me, in being over the last 3 years, in the talent level and how even keel it is with the other two.
What are some of the points that you make to guys that you're trying to recruit, in order to try to
Mm-hmm.
steal them away from a Division II or Division I program? And if you were the parent of a player who was talking with a Matt Ellenbest or a Division III program out there somewhere, like, what are some questions that you would ask? And obviously these are things I'm sure you tell recruits, so I think we can tie these two kind of questions together. But what are some things that you're telling to players to try to get them to go to Kalamazoo? And if you, and on the flip side of things, what kind of questions do you think that families should be asking when they're getting recruited? Whether it doesn't matter what level they're getting recruited by, but like, what are some questions that you think people should be asking that end up being pretty important stuff in the recruiting process that people might not jump out to them to ask? Just the average everyday person might not think that to ask this or make this a priority.
Yeah, so I think more so for me, in the questions that we typically get when we do our visits, the number one question that we get religiously is, this place costs a lot. How do you litigate all of the money, and how do you decrease that? I'm telling you, that is the number one question. And we run through that process with them during our visits. When we do our visits, you're going to do an admissions tour. You get to feel the academic side, and we're pretty prestigious academically. I mean, we've had some very popular and famous people come through school here. Like, we have Stryker in this general area. He went to school here. Larry Bell, who created Bell's Oberon, he went to school here. So there's some high priority and, people that have gone through the realm of this. But the number one question that we typically get is, this place costs a lot of money. How do we decrease that number? That's number one. Number two is roster size. I think you and I both know rosters are abnormally big because of the previous years of what happened within the world. So that's number two. Number three is, how do you develop? Because all of these tools that we now have at our disposal, a lot of kids are looking for that. From what I've realized, a lot of these kids train at facilities that have TrackMan, Rep, Soto, to name a few. The developmental process is huge. And another question that we also get is, how many kids are you looking to bring in, right? And we answer all those questions, obviously, really transparent. And I said before, like, number one, like, we don't mass recruit. Our normal size for our programs within 40. Sometimes it's less than that. So we let them know, like, hey, we have 40 lockers in our locker room. We don't have 60 guys. We don't have 65 guys. We don't have a JV program. We tell them that. Our developmental process, I do majority of this talking is, we individually program every guy. So whatever is tailored to your needs, offensively, defensively, pitching wise, if you have any level of mechanical deficiencies, well, you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Hey, if we need to clean up your arm action, well, in your plyo work, you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. So we program that fall, winter, and spring. And the objective is that, you're doing stuff in the spring that hopefully you're not doing in the fall or doing in the fall. So that basically is that we've transitioned through the course of the fall, winter, and spring, and you've gotten better. And, I use the example all the time when I do visits, my first year. I talk about an individual named Kate Thune, who, when I met him, he was probably 86, 87, was pretty stiff. Low half was pretty stiff, kind of lacked some kinetic chain work. And, to his credit, I gave him X, Y, and Z. He put in the time and the effort. He became the director, not the actor. And by, spring break in Arizona, he was 94 to 96 and didn't look back. Right. And we can prove that because, we back that up. We show it because we have all of this information. And, if you could do an X, Y, Z, you have the video pulled up, boom, there you go. So that's obviously a huge piece, because I think a lot of kids look for that developmental process, because they don't want to be the same person they were their senior year as they were their freshman. And we want to build them up through the course of those 4 years or 5 years, right? So that's another one too. Again, the biggest one is the financial piece. because you're going to have to go through filling out the application process. You're going to have to fill out the FAFSA. Our college provides a Mandel Award that's for a K college thing only, and that's just for applying for the FAFSA. Then you have all the scholarship opportunities that come with that. So, but if I'm a parent and my son is being recruited by a college, I'm a pretty prepared individual. I'm legit like walking in with maybe a list of questions or a notebook or something. I've had kids do that. I had a kid that had like 40 questions in a binder. And I was like, holy mother Moses. But thankfully enough, those questions were answered during his visit. He looked at his binder and looked at every question. He's like, nope, you answered every one. And I'm like, sweet, let's rumble. And obviously for us, we like to do second visits too, because through the course of the summer, obviously the kids aren't on campus, so you don't get the full spectrum of that visit. And typically we do second visits in the fall when everybody's back on campus and we're practicing, because it's like, we tell you don't mass recruit, right? But if we take you out to the field on your second visit and you see 65, 70 guys, to me and to us, for that matter, you essentially break that trust bond. It's not a good look at the end of the day. So basically what we tell you, we also want to show you, because I think actions are still louder than words. That's more of a life-based thing for me than anything else. So we do those second visits in the fall with kids. And it has worked out tremendously in bringing in the kids that we want, that are going to be impactful within the program, both as obviously as a person and as a player. But those are typically the questions we get from parents. And if I was a parent as well, those are typically the questions I would ask.
So you mentioned there about developing players, and obviously like every player that's mid to upper 80s is not going to leave there being mid 90s. But what
Sure.
are at the Division III level, and I want people to have a better understanding of what Division III baseball is about than when they showed up, and if they listen to this podcast. What tools do you all have for development there? Like, what are some of the favorite tools that you've got on campus to be able to develop guys? And it doesn't need to be like tech. If it is, it's great. If it's not, it's okay. But even like plyo balls, like what are some standard things that you use with your pitchers to help them develop in their time there at Kalamazoo?
Yeah, so I will start with, so we have TrackMan. We just got TrackMan this year. We got that through a donor. We were very fortunate enough to have that. So that's been brand new. It is a huge tool for our pitch design process and what we're trying to look for. We used to use Rapsodo a lot, but since we got TrackMan, we don't. We use what we call Pulse. So Pulse was created by Driveline, and it's pretty much a sleeve or like a little thing you wrap around your arm, and it comes with a blue chip, and it pretty much tracks arm health. So it's like arm speed, internal rotation, all of those things, and we're taking that information and transitioning it to workload management. So we're not overtaxing the arm. So if we're doing a hybrid A day is typically our bullpen day or our live day. You're hitting this workload management, and then we have like a hybrid B or recovery plus, depending on when we're in the season. You're hitting this workload management. And it's been a huge factor for us because our arm health has been significantly different over from year 1 to year 3. And the guys love it. We had a meeting with them, like, this is the reason why we have it. This is what you need to follow, and they follow that. Okay, so that's another piece. So we have that. We actually have a video system called BATS. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's what Major League Baseball uses. We signed a 3-year deal. So basically we have an individual on staff that oversees it with the computer and tracks every single pitch, and we take it with us everywhere we go. And we used to do a 4-camera operating system, but now we transitioned to 6. So basically what you get out of that is center field camera, full field, and you get open and close side hitter. And now we're getting our open and close side pitcher. We did not do that. We came to an understanding that we wanted to. So now it's a 6-camera operating system, right? And you chart every single pitch of every single game, no matter where we're at, and we upload it. And it gives the individuals from both offensively and pitching to watch themselves pitch, good, bad, in between, whatever it is. They can go and dissect themselves, see what they did wrong, see what they did good. Hey, do we need to change up some sequencing? Whatever that may be, they have access to. So that's the other piece. And then, we have like core velocity. We do core velocity belt work. We do a lot of med ball work. We have like PVC piping just for connection purposes if we run into that. Every single arm that we have gets their own individual set of plyos. They get like a little Nike drawstring bag. We load that with every single plyo. We do a 7/9/11 weighted baseball for them. They get their own set of J-bands, obviously, for a warm-up purpose, and then they get a band pull apart for recovery purposes. That's all there through the course of the year. Now, if something breaks, because it does, we just take it back and re-replace it. So that's another tool. We have water bags. We have water balls. We have a litany of things when it comes to our development. And it's like, I'm telling you, a huge, huge thing to have. Now, everybody's not going to use them. Like, someone may use a med ball while someone else is using a water bag, but the end all be all, like, we provide all of that for those guys.
I got to be honest, man, I'm sure people listening to this, I hope that they're kind of surprised by that. But even when I asked you, I wasn't expecting you to say that many things. You guys have, like, everything. I mean, you don't have the pitching lab that Wake Forest has, but, I mean, a 6-camera system, and you can track everything, and basically you have every other tool that the majority of colleges in the country at most levels have to develop guys. I mean, this is pretty legit stuff, and I maybe it's always been that way, or maybe it's changed. I don't know, but to me, when I'm hearing you talk, if I'm a prospect listening to this, I'm thinking, well, I can go to Kalamazoo and progress as an individual just as much as I can go to a mid-major and progress, because you've got all the tools there, as long as Matt Ellenbest knows what the hell he's doing. You can make a lot of progress at Kalamazoo, and I don't know if it's always been that way and I was just too naive to know it, or maybe just the world has progressed a little bit in college baseball. But man, it sounds like you guys are able to do, development-wise, pretty much what anybody else is able to do, and guys are going to have the same opportunities there that they would have most anywhere else, and I think that's awesome. So I do want to ask you about the video system, and I think that, paralysis by analysis is certainly something that people can fall into, and I think now we are in like an information age in baseball, but I think sometimes it's information overload where guys can be too obsessed with getting all their data. Or like, I have a hard time watching big leaguers, and I'm not there to know exactly what they're looking at or what they pay attention to, but every time a major leaguer has an at bat, and he's immediately in the dugout, looking at the iPad, and maybe he's looking at pitch sequencing and just kind of how the guy got him out or whatever, and he's kind of like reliving that, and maybe there's some benefit to it, but I also partly think that sometimes you can't overload yourself with information as a player, or else you're out there thinking about that stuff, when in reality, when the lights are on, mostly you just need to worry about competing and, worry about the other stuff when you're in the bullpen session or whatever. How much do you guys actually look at that stuff so you don't overwhelm players with it, but also balance it out? So like you're not overwhelming guys with it, but you're using it when you need to. Like, how much do your players actually, Matt, look at the video, or like how often do you ask them to look at video from a bullpen, a start, an inner squad, whatever it may be?
Yeah, so before I even begin there, it's actually a fair point that you make, is where I feel like a lot of kids are getting over-analytical with the data. And transparently, we ran into that issue in the fall where we were so heavily worried about, hey, how's, my vert on my fastball, hey, is my sweeper this, my cutter this, to the point where we would inter squad, or we would, we scrimmage Hillsdale, and the first thing a kid would ask me, be like, oh, how's my breaking ball there? It looked like it was moving pretty well. And I'm like, it gave up 4 hits. So it's like, we did run into that issue. And, my boss and I were like, we have to try to minimize this a little bit more. But, to answer your question, so I will say this. So when we upload all of our bats video, but for me as a pitching coach, I actually provide them a document that they're required to fill out post live outing. Okay. Now it's broken down into every pitch that they throw. Okay. So in their arsenal, so to speak, it's right-handers, left-handers, and percentages, right? And it's basically, if I have a sinker ball guy, if I objected with a sinker ball guy when we work in our bullpens or flat grounds or whatever we're doing that day, like I want to be below the string line and inner third of the plate versus a right-handed hitter, because that's where the success of the majority of sinker ballers, I think more so for our level than anything, is going to be right there. So what we do with that is this is brand new. we put together amongst me and a couple other coworkers that helped me out, which has been a huge piece, is we put together pre-pen reports because we have track. That's what I also forgot. I know we have track too, which has actually been a huge tool. So all of everything gets uploaded into that, all of our throwing and everything. But in that system of track, we do pre-pen reports. So say they're throwing 25 pitches, we put in the sequence that we want it. Here's what they're working on. With that, we have an individual that worked or did an internship as now an employee at Driveline, and he's more of a student manager, but he developed this system called Stuff Plus, and basically what that is, it's a K College thing only. Basically what it is that it has at each pitch, we take velo, vertical break, horizontal break, and spin, and then it maps out into a number. 100 is the average, right? So anybody that's below 100, we go, okay, well, what can we do to fix it? If we're right at 100, slightly above it, okay, maybe we need to continue to work on this, and he'll get better with it. And then we have some individuals that push 180, 190. We're like, yep, okay, that's pretty solid, and we just stick with that. But we developed this system this year because I felt like I felt like after we had lost last year, there was another level to get to. And in my mind, through the course of the summer, we were like, what can we do to get there? And, the individual at Driveline played a huge factor in this. We talked in the summer, he got back and we sat down like, this is what we're going to do. So we do pre-pen plans for each individual. Everybody gets their own plan. Everybody's doing what they need to be doing in their bullpen. They're going to have the TrackMan set up. They don't look at the TrackMan. I don't show them TrackMan numbers after every single pitch. It does not happen. We did that in the fall. I said, we're not doing this anymore. I put my foot down. So I just sit there with the iPad, I put it down. Hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Hey, mechanically, you're kind of this. Hey, your lead leg's getting traversed a little bit. Let's have more stability in the ground. But they don't look at the numbers. We did that in the fall, and I'm like, we got to stop this because it peeled off into, I care more about my data and what my stuff looks like than just trying to get somebody out. And, we do that. And then after that's all said and done, and we do a post-bullpen report. And we take all the numbers from TrackMan. We essentially put it in there through our Stuff Plus model, whether, they're a sinker, slider, changeup guy. We break it down by pitch, right? And then we use intended zones through Driveline. Intended zones is a huge tool where we sit with a laptop and you literally track each individual pitch. So if he's a sinker baller trying to throw it in the 9 pocket on the inner third to a right-handed hitter, right, he hits a spot, it turns green. If he misses 17 inches, you put it there, you move to the next pitch. So we put that in their report. And it's going to show you at the end of the day, hey, you hit your intended zone spots 55%. Your average miss was 8 inches. Okay. And then we try to take that process. We meet with them individually, like, okay, well, here's what we need to do to get better at that. Right. So we take all this data, we implement it into these plans. They always get their plans. We try to turn it over in a 36-hour period so they can have it and they can look at it, because the more information, to me, the more information that we show them and provide, the easier it's going to be in speeding up the developmental process. But it's not going to be the end-all, be-all. They understand that now. I mean, it took several meetings to do that and conversations, but it worked. Just continuing to take all that information that we can provide for them, show it to them, work on it, progress it to the point where it's like my confidence in my ability. Like I feel like I can throw any pitch in any count. And more times than not, we're very thankfully, knock on wood, we have that. That was my end goal, but, at the end of the day, the bats video has been the biggest proponent, because for us as coaches, we keep track of every put it, but every single person that I've realized that has watched bats video is only watching the good pitches they make over the last couple of years. So I said, no, we need to start looking at the good and the bad, change the bad, figure out how we could be, a little bit more consistent in that good category, if that makes sense. So I require them to sit down, to watch that video, to dissect themselves, all right, and then self-reflect on their outing, because it'll come with a list of questions. Not only do I do that in live, I do that in their bullpens too. So there's 2 separate documents there. One's a little, it's a night and day difference, but if I were to show any recruit the bats video, they sit there and I go through the system and they're like, oh my God. Because it is really eye-opening, because I can break it down by count. I can break it down by hit. I can go, hey, well, what do we like to throw 1-0? Like, what does he like to do 0-1 majority of the time? And it is a huge tool. But The kids love it. I've definitely realized that more so this last year than the previous two because I didn't think we were taking it as serious as we should have been. And now they're starting to go, okay, I made this bad pitch and this is the reason why. So it's that self-reflective, self-awareness piece because the more self-aware individuals I can have, that I've learned at least over the last couple of years, the better off we're going to be as a staff, not individually, but as a staff.
It's pretty awesome on the development side of things.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about the breaking ball and like guys coming out of an outing saying, "How'd my breaking ball look?" And you say, "We gave up 4 hits." I was always thought as a recruiter, you know, like as a recruiter, it helps to have tools. Like right at the end of my first go around coaching is when you started to see TrackMan kind of creep in to like a game where you'd have like a board behind home plate that would give you some data, right? It was like just starting to happen. Even then, I think it was pretty much only velo and like spin rate. And the first time you're seeing spin rate as a coach, you're kind of like, okay, is that good? Spin rate, is that good? But to me as a recruiter, you had a good breaking ball if it missed barrels and missed bats. If it found a lot of barrels, then it's not a very good breaking ball. And like I know at Moorhead, my first year, you weren't there, but we had a guy on the staff that was like up to 94 and had great stuff. Like as a coach, you would not want to sit in there and like, if you were doing like a bunt thing where you'd have a pitcher throw in live and the coach would bunt it. There are some guys you feel pretty comfortable standing in there against. He's only throwing 75%. You know, he's going to throw a ball down the middle. This is a dude you wouldn't feel comfortable being in there, right? Well, like he had great stuff, but he couldn't pitch because he was what we called a barrel finder. You know, his stuff was great, but that was the scouting term that we used for him is barrel finder, which is not as bad as being an ultimate barrel finder. You don't want to be labeled that if someone's scouting you. But anyway, to me, whether or not TrackMan shows it to be a good pitch, if the hitter is going to show you if it's a good pitch, or like, you know, if it's a starter and a reliever in a multiple inning appearance, like if as far as recruiting goes, I think that sometimes that can be the case. And I know years ago I talked to a Power 5 assistant coach, had him on a podcast, and after we stopped recording, we were talking more, and I was like, man, I should be recording this. But he was kind of saying that was kind of like what you did. Guys would go, but it was more like for them, guys would go in the off season. They'd go home for Christmas break and they'd go work at somewhere, you know, I won't mention the names, but you know the names, but the places where guys go and work in the off, where pitchers go work in the off season to, you know, to make the shape better on their pitches or to develop their secondary stuff. And he's like, guys would come back sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes guys would come back and their measurables would be better, but the pitch would be worse. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he said they would come back with their spin rate or their spin efficiency or the break or whatever would be measuring better, but it was getting squared up more than it used to be. And it's almost like, okay, we need to go back and make this pitch worse on paper so that it's better on grass, you know, or on dirt. Because you know, a good pitch on paper that doesn't get anybody out is not a very good pitch. So anyway, I want to ask you about recruiting a little bit, Matt, and just ask you a little bit about just kind of how you recruit guys at Division III. I'd love to start with this to kind of set a benchmark. With pitchers, it's a lot easier than hitters. But like, what's a standard velocity, you know, that you guys recruit, or maybe like you could give a range of like your incoming freshman class this year for right-handers. This is about a standard velo or the range or whatever you want to give for left-handers. And then also just when you're out recruiting, like what are some things that you see that make a guy recruitable for you? Is it the breaking ball or a changeup that is missing bats and missing barrels? Is it projectability? Is it, you know, the ability to throw multiple pitches for strikes? Is it, because obviously you're not going to get like a full finished product most of the time for any high school player, let alone a Division III player. And I don't mean to knock your level, but like there's going to be stuff that's just not complete about him. So you're going to have to pick and choose. You know, some kid is going to check these boxes, but not those boxes. And maybe you want to recruit that guy, but a different guy that, you know, has different boxes checked, you pass on for various reasons. So if you could, I know this is kind of a loaded question, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, you know, first of all, just to give listeners an average idea, what is, you know, a good Division III program in Michigan, you know, what does it look like velocity-wise for guys that you're recruiting? out of high school?
Mhm.
And then secondarily, just what else, Matt, are you looking for? Let's talk specifically with pitchers. Like, what are you looking for with a pitcher that you're recruiting that makes him recruitable in your eyes?
Yeah, I think, for me, from a velocity perspective, the class that we brought in right now that are currently freshmen range from anywhere from 83 to 88, and that's right-handed arms only. It's a little bit tricky from the left side because everybody wants left-handed arms. And that was one thing I think this recruiting class that we're bringing in for next year, I worked really hard at doing because we needed left-handed arms. But from a left-handed arm standpoint, I would say anywhere from 79 to 84. There's some guys that obviously I really want that are maybe like 85, 86, 87 that I'd be like, well, we'll put them in the rotation right away. But, a lot of people want left-handed arms, and I completely understand that. But the freshman class that we have now, we have one kid that's 85 to 88. We'll bump 89. And then we have some individuals that'll be like 83 to 85. We may have one that's like 80 to 82 because he doesn't really move that efficiently yet. So we're working on those things, but it varies. It's varied for me the last few years. The recruiting class that, we're bringing in this year, it's mostly left-handed arms. It's obviously smaller because next year we have everybody back again, which is pretty cool. But we bring in 5 left-handed arms, and that range again is from 79 to 85. We're bringing in 1 right-handed arm who's 85 to 87. His summer coach is firmly going to stand on the fact that he's going to be 90 by the end of spring, which will be pretty cool. And he's also a two-way. He also catches. He's got a pretty solid bat. But from a velo perspective for pitching, like that's what I look for. But the biggest thing for me is pitchability when I'm looking at an arm. Now, when I recruit, I have been very fortunate and grateful to build relationships over the last 6 or 7 years in the state of Michigan, because this business is based on relationships. And I do my research and my homework well before I have the opportunity to go see somebody. Now, with that being said, when I do go and see that individual off a mound, it's pitchability. Like, if you can't command a fastball, that's going to be hard. And that's for a lot of people. For a lot of kids, like, if you cannot command a fastball, it's going to be relatively difficult for you to play at the college level. I'm sorry, it just is. I don't mean to be rude or arrogant. It's what I've seen, and that's number one for me is fastball command and pitchability. If they can spin a breaker for a strike, obviously I take my notes to the course. I'm looking at depth because I put it as, okay, like, this is where he is now. Where do I see him in a year? Where do I see him in 3 years? Okay, I do that for every single kid, and I'll go watch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids over the 2.5, 3 months. But, pitchability is number one for me. If I need to go watch a hitter or something like that, the ball skills, like footwork, all of that matters, But the one thing I look for a lot of is how well does the kid handle himself on his bad days? Because to me, a lot of kids struggle with handling adversity and tough times and failures, and you and I both know this is a game of failure. So I want to see the character of a kid when he walks 5 guys and gives up 7 hits, or I want to see a kid where he strikes out 3 times. Is he going back to the dugout pouting? Is he sitting on the bench while the rest of his teammates are standing up? Is he happy with the fact that he goes 0 for 2, but he hit a sac fly, or he moved a runner, because those things matter at the next level. And I've done this several times in watching games. I see somebody chuck their helmet or is pouting in their dugout, I've left. As bad as that may sound, I've left. And I literally will tell my boss, I'm like, listen, I saw X, Y, and Z. He's like, okay, move on. Because at the end all be all too, you're trying to bring in kids with high character. The talent's great, sure. But if you have a kid that lacks character, more times than not, he's going to be cancerous within your program, especially when you're winning and your program is based off character, it's based off culture. If you're going to have, that needle in a haystack, I guess, it could get problematic. So, I do a lot of research and a lot of phone calls and text messages, and I don't they tell me, oh, well, he's 85, 86, you got a 3-pitch mix. I'm like, okay, that's great, but how is he as a person? You know what I mean? Like, how is he as a person? And I'll be like, all right, I'll come to watch him. And I see something. I'm like, listen, like, I don't mean to be rude, but the character there isn't for me because I'll have to move on. I firmly believe I'm standing on recruiting the person and then the player. But if I'm at a ball game and I'm watching the tools like pitchability from a pitching side of things, can he spin a breaking ball a little bit? And then bat the ball skills offensively, footwork, arm strength, speed, whatever, all those, they matter. But, I'm a huge proponent, again, like I said, with how an individual can handle his adversity and his failures, because more times than not, it's like, well, okay, there's pouting, but oftentimes kids forget, like, I have another opportunity to remap that and go, I could be better the next day. That's basically it from my recruiting side, especially for what we do for us. I work really hard at it, and I am very thankful that I do a lot of my homework and a lot of my research ahead of time. And, I have a Google document where I have hundreds and hundreds of kids already. But we don't, for our level, it's not like I'm on 25s already. Have we had 25 visits? Yeah, sure. We've had a couple, but as soon as the spring season starts, I'm pedal to the metal. And I'm recruiting against some of the best colleges in the state of Michigan that I'm not necessarily afraid to recruit against, who are, some of my closest friends. I've built those friendships up, but, I try to go after the best kids in the state because more times than not, our kids are from the state of Michigan. We may pull one from Indiana or Illinois, but, I stand firm on going after the best kids I physically can. And, if they tell me like, hey, look, I have other opportunities at higher levels, I go, well, thank you. Best of luck to you. I hope it works out for you. And then I move on. But the end all for me, recruiting wise, is you're going to see 83 to 88-ish. Lefties will be 79 to 84, 85, and then pitchability, all of those things matter.
You want to know what's really wild about that and like how far this game has come in not that long of a time? Like when I was at Moorhead, those teams that you were on, an 85 to 88 arm was a guy that you were interested in at Moorhead State as a Division I program. And of course we weren't very good when I got there, but we were pretty good when we left. And my first year away from there is that team that won 38 games and went to a regional. 85 to 88 at that time. It's not like you were recruiting just that, but you could go see an 85 to 88 arm that was loose and had a good breakable ball, and you're like, yeah, man, I like that as a freshman. I liked it a lot. Like, there were guys, frankly, we were recruiting guys almost in the same velocity range that you were. Luke Humphrey, who ended up being like a top 10 at Moorhead State history and wins. His freshman year, he came in and started out as a late inning bullpen guy, and by the end of the year was like our Friday guy as a freshman.
Oh yeah.
I still remember going to watch him, and he was a 5'10", 84 to 86 right-hander. And
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that.
He's a funny story because, like, just not that I want to digress to this, but the way that we got him is that he emailed me, and I was, like a psycho about returning every single email that I ever got as a coach. He emailed us, and he told me later that he basically emailed every school in Tennessee, which is where he was from, every Division I, and every Division I basically ignored him. And he emailed me a couple times, and he sent me his perfect game profile, and his velo was on there being like 84, 86, and he didn't try to embellish that. He was playing at Northern Kentucky in the summer, and I was like, well, I guess I'll go see him while he's there. It's a tournament. I'll watch a couple games there. And that's what he was. He was 83 to 86 that day, but he threw, 3 very distinct pitches and threw them all for strikes, and he was competitive, and, was a multi-sport athlete, and just did some stuff that he played infield for, a couple of weeks when he got to Moorhead before he transitioned to just be, actually, it might have played infield all fall, but he came in as a two-way player, like pretty athletic kid. He took a big jump, and that's why he did what he did. He took a big jump from the fall to the spring. That's besides the point. But I guess my point is that we put Luke on a 25% scholarship, and he was 84, 86 as a 5'10" right-hander at a Division I school, and this was in like the summer of 2013.
He came in when I did.
Yeah, and I recruited him like I'm almost positive that this was like summer of senior year that he was uncommitted, and we brought him in. Like, he visited on that. He went from Northern Kentucky playing to Moorhead to visit, and then was, on campus a couple months later. Anyway, it's so funny to me how, and this, I don't think the rest of the world has, like, just the general population in the baseball world has made this transition either, to think that, back in that time, if you were like 80 to 82, that guy's a Division III player. If you were like 82, 84, that's a Division II player. 86, 87 and above was Division I, and now it's like every level of Division I, every level of college baseball has velocity. Of course, like the velocities have bumped up. Like, if you're, but now the velocities have bumped up so much where if you just because you're throwing 88 as a high school player doesn't mean that you're getting any Division I looks. It might not even mean you're getting Division II looks. It's nuts. It's just nuts how that's progressed.
It just continues and continues to evolve. I mean, I like, it's almost getting to the point where 95 is a stock righty, not 90 anymore. You know what I mean? It's just,
I just talked about
my
that
goodness gracious.
with the guys. So not to just keep reminiscing about Moorhead State, but we had Tyler Keel there, who was our closer, and he was like 92, 94, but his secondary stuff wasn't that good. He was big, big, strong guy, worked his ass off, was one of the hardest workers on the team. But he got drafted, and I believe it was the 15th round. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday about his kid, who's a college player now. And I was like, man, at that time, I think Tyler probably would have got drafted in 2015. But like, even in 2015, if you were a good size right-hander in college, and like 94 was the magic number, if you touched 94, if you were like touching 94 on a regular basis, you were getting drafted. And now that's up at least a couple miles an hour as far as like what what the velo is that you have to get to be certain you're going to get drafted. It's not 94 anymore. There's a lot of guys throwing 94 that don't sniff pro ball, and that's it's nuts. That's how that's happening.
Yeah,
In like a 10-year period. Not even a 10-year.
It's only going to evolve more and more and more. So it's going to be intriguing as we progress. I think over the next maybe 3 to 4 years, how much closer that gap is going to get between 1, 2, 3 JUCO, NAIA. I mean, because you're right. I mean, and I remember Keel, like 94, 95. I mean, there was times where I caught his flat ground and I'm like, I can't do this, dude. Like, you're killing me. But he'd throw a splitter at like 88. I'm like, there goes my thumb. Like, my goodness, dude. But he was a phenomenal human being. One of the nicest kids I've ever been around in my college career. And you're right, one of the hardest workers I had ever been around in my college career. But like that, I'm like, okay, because I could go from catching him to Craig Piercy. You remember Gator, and Gator would be like 87, 89 with a little sink to it. I'm like, I can do this. This is perfect. All right, you're my throwing partner from here on out. Let's go to work. But I think it's just going to continue to evolve in my eyes. And I go on Twitter, I go on TV, and I see an NAI throwing 97, and I'm like, holy mother of Moses. Like this, and it's just firm, and he's got a secondary pitch that he can throw whenever he wants to, and I'm like, my goodness gracious, like the game of baseball is changing.
It's hard to be a hitter now, man.
I think it's always. I feel like it's kind of it's starting to get to that point. Oh God, so it's like, to your point too, kind of peeling back to what you were saying earlier, how you had an individual that's 94 and would kind of throw it and it would just get hit around, right? I have. Personally, as a coach, I've gotten to the point where I have an individual that's like that. I'm like, okay, we have the information that goes, I could send him a heat map and go, well, here's where your fastball is, and you're getting tattooed here. We have to come up with a method to get you at the knees, because I bet his outings, his games that he pitches in changes. Like, it's just trying to if you have to remap and readjust, do it. But I think early on in my college career, when I first started coaching, I'd be like, well, I told him, like, this is what was happening, instead of going, no, you know what, yeah, sure, I told him, but I have to figure out a way to make this right for him to get him on a successful path, not just essentially, quote unquote, to kick him to the curb. because I told myself as I've gotten older through coaching world, like, I'm not ever going to wave a white flag on a kid. I am going to find different ways and methods to get this kid to be successful in some way, shape, or form. And I think when you can provide that for the kid is going to want it, hopefully, more and more and more. He's going to want to get better. Because if I show that I'm passionate in his ability to develop and get him better, he's going to want it for himself. And that is how I feel. That's what I've learned, I would say, over the last three years or so. That's what fires me up and gets me going. It fires me up because I'm like, I am not going to sit here and give up on a kid. I am going to be full throttle. I want you to be full throttle.
I love that as a coach, player, because I know that there are programs that I'm very familiar with that do that and that have done that through the years, that they're quick to give up on guys and they'll go somewhere else. There was one pitcher that I won't say where he was, but I saw him in high school. I was working a camp, and he was like a high school kid from the Midwest and went down south to go to a camp and ended up going to this college where I was working the camp. You know, a pretty high level Division I program. He was there for 1 year, like barely pitched. Left. They gave up on him pretty quickly, and it wasn't anything else that they gave up on him as opposed to him just wanting to go home or whatever. He ended up going back to where he was from, went to a Big Ten school and had a great career and ended up playing football. And it's kind of like, well, if that first school had just like stuck with him a little bit and just given him a little bit of a pass that first year, like, okay, it's your first year at this level of baseball. Let's see if maybe let's see if we can figure some different things out or see if you can kind of even out a little bit or just have a better feel for what it takes in your second or third year as opposed to freshman year where sometimes guys are kind of struggling to keep their head above water. But I want to ask you, Matt, in the remainder of the podcast here, which we're already just kind of flying by, we're like 50 minutes into the podcast already. In the time remaining, I want to ask you, how has Matt Ellenbest changed from 25 at Kaskaskia to age 31 Matt Ellenbest at Kalamazoo College? I'd like to just know, and we talked about this a little bit before, in a way before we recorded, but how have you changed both as a person, which I know factors into how you're a coach, but as a person and coach, how have you changed in that period of time?
I love this question. I really do, because, I can look in the mirror and look at myself and go, you know what, Matt, you drastically changed. And, it's a very humbling feeling, to sit here and go, who I was at 25 is not remotely close to who I am at 31. And if I were to go back in my early on 25-year-old days at, KC, I was an emotional roller coaster. I think any young coach can attest to that. You're kind of up and down. You're not even keeled. And in that time frame, too, when you're that young, yes, you want to have personable relationships with your athletes and your players. But a lot of young coaches flirt with that line of friendship and coach, and I'm a culprit of this. I wholeheartedly admit that. It got to a point where I was too close. And year by year, 26, 27, and 28, it got better and better, but slowly. And then I think what happened for me, it was more so a couple of years ago. It was more of a lot of a personal-based things that happened that kind of had a 360, a little bit more than a little bit more, and it's personal, and it's something that obviously has been discussed. But I think the moral of that is when you go through a pretty hard time or difficult times in your life, and I said this to the players, like, the one quote that I found through the course of being in the dark time was, when you think you've been buried is when you've actually been planted. And when I heard that, I'm like, damn, okay, I have to take this day by day, because it was a difficult time. Like, I don't necessarily talk about, I kind of keep, I'm a card keeper sometimes with secrets with people, but, what I've been able to learn through that process is take my story and help the athletes or anybody for that matter in any way that I can. Like, if I had to go from a personal standpoint, like if we're talking when I had just taken the job here, I was really close with my grandparents, my dad's parents for that matter. They came to everything. They took me to a lot of things because my dad was coaching my brother. My grandfather passed away in the beginning of September of Parkinson's, which was difficult. We were close, like it hurt. Like I'm living in Grand Rapids, it hurt. My dad's going through a difficult time with that, right? But then you fast forward a few months after that happens, you miss him, but then I'm living with somebody, and you're thinking that this is going to be it. You're going to slow it down and tie it down. And then there were some things that happened, and transparently, I've never really dealt with anything like that before and had proof that there was things going on behind my back, except I wanted to keep the peace and didn't provide that proof. So at the end, I got bit and I got hurt. And then all of a sudden, my dad, who was going through health issues, he had cancer at a time, and his cancer got worse, and I mean a lot worse. And I'm sitting here going, are you kidding me right now? Like, it's just one thing after another, right? And then March rolls around. My dad's mother passes away 6 months after I lose, my grandfather. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, am I digging myself a hole? Like, what's going on here? And, when you're away from home, and your dad's been dealing with health battles for 25 years, like it wore on my mother. My mom and dad, bless their hearts, have been together since high school. I would be at work, like doing early work, and she would call me like, Mom, I can't do this. I have to do this. I'll call you tonight or something. And then I would completely forget about it. And I'm like, gosh dang it, man. But, that happened. And like, it got to a point in my life where like, I couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything. And I just heard that quote, and I would hear and these other things would pop up. Like it was a message from God, and which I've really dove into my faith hard over the last few years. And it's been a tremendous thing for me in creating a lot more peace. It's like being more even keeled. Like that within itself has drastically changed me, even from 28 to 31, not just 25 to 31, where I feel like I talk differently. Everything that I do is it's through the Lord. Like I keep God at the center. It keeps me steadfast. Like all of that stuff. I keep him at the center of everything that I'm doing. And I always tell myself, as long as I'm doing the right thing, God will take care of me. And I could go on and on about it, but at the end all be all, it took a lot of work on my own. No friends and no family. And just by myself in a dark place to go, what am I going to do to get out of this? And that was through my faith, right? And just tell myself, hey, just one more day. And one day turned into 3 and turned into 5, and it turned into 30. And next thing you know, I come out of that hole and I'm a completely different person. And when people can see that around you, you really realize the amount of effort and all of that work that goes into it. And you have 20-year-old kids coming up to you, your players are going, you're different. Like I talk way differently. Yes, I do have I have a solid personality. Like I laugh and I have a good time. I like to keep spirits high. I like to keep it free flowing, and I'm very energetic and I'm high energy and I have a loud voice. But at the end all be all, going through that process over the last 3 years, the person I am now is the person that I've been looking for since I was 23, 24, 25. Now, obviously, I'm going to continue to grow and mature and do all that stuff as I get older, right? But this is I feel like I have become the person through those dark times. I've become that person that I've wanted to strive for forever almost. And, I'm very grateful that I did have support system and they understood that I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't talk to anybody. They were very understanding of that and they let me go through that. And now it's been nothing but thank yous. I appreciate you letting me go through that by myself, because I listen. I sit there. I'm all eye contact. I don't sit here and look at somebody with their opinion and say, well, this is stupid. Like, I used to do that when I was 25. Like you have yours, I have mine. You know, let's come to an understanding. Like, I'm a huge talker. I like to communicate. I like to fix. I don't argue. I don't do any of that. I just have like this peace in my life. And because of that peace, it's helped with the kids. It's helped with me personally. It's helped with, you know, my family. It's helped with, you know, maybe someone maybe someone I'm talking to, you know, that I'm trying to have in my life, whatever that may be. You know, my ultimate goal was to continue to evolve as a person. And through those times, like I said, it's because of that for sure.
So I wanted to ask that question because I'm sure there are people listening to this.
Yeah.
Who have gone through something similar. There are people listening to this who haven't gone through it yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I respect how far you've come and how fast. And you and I have talked about this a little bit before, but you know, I've had just a dark time as well from the time I left college baseball, really until this is another podcast in itself. But you know, going back into college this past year really helped just kind of enlighten things for me and give me a better perspective than I had before, help me understand why some things were happening like they were, and you know, give me some closure to where I didn't have closure, a lot of stuff there. But I think that a lot of people, just for them to hear that they're not the only person to go through it, I think helps a lot, and just kind of know that, you know, that if they try, they can find someone to talk to about it, and they're gonna find somebody who's been through something similar. Now, for you, Matt, how do you keep it going now? How do you, like, do you have like a routine daily or things weekly that you do to kind of keep yourself centered? Because just because you got there doesn't mean you're automatically there forever. Like, it's got to be a conscious effort to stay where you are and continue to grow. Do you have anything you can share with people just about ways that you help yourself now to be the best version of yourself that you can be, both for yourself, for your family, for your players, you know, for the people in your life that you love? What, if anything, do you have that you do now to kind of keep yourself there, or to help yourself even progress from where you are?
Yeah, that's a good point, because before I even answer, there's a lot of people that say they changed, but they were like, you know what, I've changed, and they stopped doing what they're doing. You know, I do have a pretty solid routine. I get up, I do roughly a 30-second cold shower, like to get that's the very first thing I do pretty much every single morning. It gets my body going. I'm ready to rumble. That's step one. Step two is that I got to have my coffee. I'm not going to lie here. Like, I love coffee. I'm going ahead and got my Keurig going, and I'm rumbling up a cup of coffee. So once I do that, have my coffee, I actually sit down. I sit down in my bed and read my Bible and roughly 30 minutes. I do 30 minutes when I wake up. I do 30 minutes before I go to bed, so I get an hour time frame with my Bible. I like to meditate. I will, after I read my Bible. Meditation has been the biggest thing for me. I literally will sit Indian style in a quiet place, and just deep breaths in and out. Meditation, if anybody's really into that would be listening to this, I highly recommend it. It has centered me a lot with reading my Bible. But then when I'm done with that, you know, before I even walk out the door, you know, I have a cross that's right by my door. I look at it and literally say, Lord, thank you for another day. I walk out the door and I go to work. And that's every single day I do that. Because it is like, I've realized, like, I had a good example is that I had a player ask me, like, what did you get through praying? Okay. Like, what did you essentially get through that? And you and I obviously had this conversation off topic, and I feel like I need to read this word for word, and I think it's important because it's really, really helped me say this. And what I told him in this day, or from that day, was, did I gain a lot from it? 100% I did. But there was also a lot of things that I lost through my prayer. So that's fear. That could be fear of death, any level of insecurity I may have had, depression, just to name a few. And basically what I told him was, like, So what I essentially lost out of prayer is ultimately the gain at the end of the day, right? Like because of going through that and understanding it and really divulging into that faith has made me build this routine where, you know what, I wake up, do X, Y, and Z. I look at the cross that I have by my door. I said, thank you for another day, and I'm out the door. And, you know, and whoever does listen to this, hopefully, you know, can take what I'm telling them and go, okay, maybe I can apply this, you know, because you're right. Like, you know, everyone in some way, shape, or form is going to go through a difficult time, and they're not going to know how to handle it. And, you know, there's, other than the quote that I had mentioned earlier, our kids are like, oh man, what a beast, what a beast. So we met before practice one day, and I'm like, do any of you know what a beast means? Like, do you know what that means? And they started giving me the answers of like baseball, this, that, and the other. I'm like, listen, let me tell you what a beast means. I said a beast is a beast that walks through hell and is grateful that their legs are still working. A beast is where he's at rock bottom. He goes, man, this is great. It's only up from here. Or a beast is when someone has lost everything and is grateful for the opportunity to get it all back. And everybody looked at me and they were like, what? I said, that's a beast. When a beast is at his utmost lowest point in his life and gets back up on his own, you might want to be afraid of that dude, because that dude is deadly but has it under voluntary control, right? Like, you can't have peace and be harmless at the same time. People that have peace, to me, this is my opinion, have a tremendous amount of violence in them, but they hide it really well. Like, because if you have peace and aren't violent, you're harmless. And I realize that because of I can be capable of great violence. I also have a tremendous amount of peace because of it, because I don't need to show that side unless it's like the utmost thing where I need to protect my family or something. But I said that quote about the beast thing, and everyone looked at me like, damn, like that's not what I was expecting. I said, yeah, exactly. That's the point. Because everyone looks at a beast from an athletic side, but nobody looks at a beast from a person side. And I just ended that conversation, and we went into practice. So there's a lot of quotes that I've come across through the course of those years that I have a notebook. And like, if I'm feeling something, I have to open it up and get back into it. It'll keep me centered. It'll keep me locked in. Right? So I've done a tremendous job in being even keeled every single day, being the same person every single day, to the kids, to the staff that I work with, to my family. Call my mom and dad, like, hey, you know, I try to talk to them once a week, both of them. You know, my brother who lives in Florida, I try to talk to him once a week. You know, we're both busy, but that's like one of my best friends, but I love him to death. But, you know, it's helped tremendously in the relationship with my parents, because, I mean, yeah, your mom may like annoy the crap out of you. Your dad may annoy you, whatever that may be. But it's like, I don't get annoyed anymore, because we're adults. We're away from home. Yet you may have parents, I miss my boys being around the house, but, you know, they are very appreciative of that phone call. Like, because I have stuff in my life. They got work. They got this. But for me, it's like, I may wake up one day and be like, damn, I need to call my mom today. Right. But for me, that's essentially my routine. That's 7 days a week, every single day, since making that change. It has not changed. It won't change. It's been very beneficial for me.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad I asked that question. I didn't know. You know, sometimes in these podcasts, I don't have questions pre-planned. I don't know if people listening to this know this or not, but, you know, I don't give the podcast guest a list of questions. I don't get questions approved. You know, I just like to have conversations, and sometimes you don't know what kind of answers you're going to get. And a lot of times I'll ask a question and the answer will kind of be it'll be underwhelming sometimes, but sometimes I ask a question and afterward I'm like, man, I pray a lot of times before the podcast that I'll be able to ask good questions and steer the conversation in a way that's going to be beneficial for other people. And honestly, I'm just kind of grateful that question came to me, and it felt like something I needed to ask you, because I think anybody listening to this can not only appreciate where you've been, the things you're going through, but like, it's obviously it's a concerted effort that you're putting in to be this person that you're being now. And I don't mind sharing this now with the podcast, with our audience, but I told Matt before we started recording that I was proud of him as a player about how far he's come and the person he used to be and the person he is now. And you said it, but I'll just repeat it. You talk differently than you used to. You're still the same guy. You're still like, the same upbeat, like super positive, high energy kind of guy that you were as a player, but just so different in so many ways. And I just appreciate who you are as a person, and I'm so glad to have you on the podcast as a coach. And I can see that things are going to be going in a really positive direction for you in the coaching world for as long as you choose to be in this world. Whether you end up as, moving up levels or becoming a head coach, running your own program and putting your own mark on a program somewhere. But there's so many positive things that I got out of this podcast, Matt. And I'm so grateful that you came on here as a guest.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I know that obviously you and I both go way back when I was a player and you were a coach, but when you presented the opportunity to do this, I said I was like 100% behind it, obviously, because we were talking about, privately about our faith and, what we've been through. And that's a conversation between you and I, obviously. But I felt like it was important to not only discuss the baseball side of things, because I think that those are important, recruiting and helping parents. But, when you live in a world that'll just spit on you and throw you away, I think, and people going through that, mental hurdles and depression or whatever it may be for an individual, I think it's important to pass along the information, pass along my journey, and in hopes of someone taking my words, hopefully, and going, okay, like, I'm going to give this a whirl and see what happens. Like, if I could make that level of an impact on somebody's life rather than on the field, I will always believe that I'm doing the right thing. I always believe that God will look after me. I will always believe that if I can help somebody's life, not on the field, somebody's life, if they're going through something. And I've been very fortunate enough to help some of these kids with that, where they like have a meeting and they sit in a chair and they start bawling their eyes out. And we sit here for an hour, or we sit we've been on this for over an hour, and I sit here and we just talk, and I would do that once a week. Like it's very humbling to take the lessons that I've learned or the experiences that I've come across through the last several years and transition it to the kids in hopes of them taking it and transitioning it into their lives to benefit their lives individually, but then get to a point when they're in their lives and they're out of college, with their future spouse or their future kids or whatever it may be. Whatever it may be. And it's more rewarding when you're getting letters in the mail or gratitude letters in the mail or wedding invites in the mail. That is so much more rewarding than winning baseball games. And winning is great, but to me, that's way more important. And my focus is on that, and in turn has helped us win games and has made a positive impact and experience for the kids, in being here. Like we have freaking 6 seniors and 5 of them are coming back for 5th years. They didn't have to. They were done. And they wanted to come back because the experience, not myself, but we can provide for them. And, we've been through the ringer, and again, it's being able to take my lesson and turn it into a message for hopefully other people, not just outside of baseball, but with life as well.
It's been great, man. I think this is going to not going to be the last time that you're going to be involved with something with Figured Out Baseball. Again, very, very grateful, Matt, for you taking your time today, and just want to wish you the best, man. And we'll stay in touch outside this podcast, but I think the people here want to hear more from you at some point again. So anyway, grateful for this time today, and hopefully it's not the last time we hear from you at Figured Out Baseball.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you, brother, as always. I appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to do this and we could sit down to discuss some things. Hopefully, I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully doing this again in the future.